Welcome back to Broken Electronics. I'm Lee, and I am so glad you could join me here for what I think is a different kind of video. Now, anyone who has looked at this channel in any detail realizes that I collect Apple computers, starting mostly from the PowerMac G3 blue and white, pretty much on up, with even a couple of M1s. And I've been very focused on computers. Now, you may have noticed that I have a number of period Apple monitors from those times. That was not intentional. For example, the 30-inch cinema display you see behind me, that great big thing there, that came along with the PowerMac G5 that's underneath it there. And also in the bundle was the original Bluetooth keyboard and mouse for $100. I wanted the G5. The other stuff, well, okay, I'll take it. I got a 20-inch Apple Cinema display, aluminum, with a 2008 Mac Pro. Much the same deal. When I got my PowerMac G4 Cube, I got a 23-inch acrylic Apple Cinema display. Very, very cool. And, you know, I don't even remember exactly what computer I got, but I ended up getting a 20-inch acrylic Apple Cinema display. No intention of collecting displays. Until recently. Now, if you look behind me here, you're going to see something a little bit different. Next to that massive 30-inch Apple Cinema display is another monitor. Welcome, my friends, to the one missing 2004 Cinema display. The 23-inch model that came, of course, between the 20 and the 30. And we're going to be taking a bit of a look at that today. So if you're interested in seeing that, please stay tuned. Okay, so we're going to have to go handheld a little bit here to look at this. There's that iconic stand that all of these, and indeed the iMacs of today, all have. At least the aluminum body things. Aluminum glass does not look at all out of place. All right, now the original Apple Cinema HD, the acrylic version, had the Apple Display connector, and there was one cord. That one cord would connect power, display, and the built-in hub on the back, at the expense of only being usable by a relatively small number of graphics cards. To achieve somewhat the same thing, you can see we bundled the Cordia. Actually, it came to me bundled, and I haven't bothered to take that off because it was long enough to fit everywhere it needed to go. All right, so we have what is in effect the one cable coming out at the back of the display, but two pass-throughs, FireWire 400 and USB 2. That's the power connector, which plugs into the power brick. Oh, excuse me, that's the power connector. I'm obviously not thinking that's an HDMI port, because in order to use this with modern Macs, I connected the DVI to a DVI to HDMI, which works very, very well. All right, let's take a look at the side of the machine. We have our controls here. Brightness up and down. Power. And here we see the two pass-throughs. We have two USB 2, which is not as useless today as you might think. Things like keyboards, pointing devices, a variety of things that really only use USB 2 power. And having those two ports there can be very, very handy. FireWire 400 in the modern world is a little bit less of an advantage, but it's there, and if you happen to be into retro tech as I am, you will very often have computers plugged into a monster like this, which can take advantage of those extra FireWire ports. All right then, turning it back around. One thing I'd like to do now is to give you a bit of a comparison between these monitors, the 30-inch up here and the 23-inch here, with a couple more modern monitors, and just see what they look like in comparison to one another. I don't know that the camera is really going to do it justice, but let's give it a try. Please stay tuned. Okay, I'm really not sure how well this is going to show up on camera, but this is the station, of course, of the test 5.1 Mac Pro. The main display is a 32-inch Samsung 4K display, quite a good display. And then the secondary display is a rather nondescript HP 23-inch, I believe. I used Res Extreme to monkey with the resolutions a little bit to try to get them to match. Yeah, I don't know how well the camera's going to show this, but to me, in real life with the naked eye, this seems kind of washed out. And I find that true with reading text. Like if you open Safari up, so much of the text comes across as a gray, even a light gray, on a white background. Now, when you're in night mode, it's not as much of a problem. All right, so we will compare this to what things look like with the nearly 20-year-old Apple Cinema displays. Stay tuned. Okay, here's the 23-inch 2004 Cinema display. The computer that is powering it is my M1 Mac Mini, and I think that looks really great. Now here's the 30-inch. Good gracious Lord. By comparison, the 23-inch seems a little washed out, although I started that one up by itself at first, and it seemed really good. The difference may be, I know a bit about the history of the 30-inch. It was one owner, certainly used a lot, but extremely good care taken of it. And I drove up to Ithaca, New York, and got it, and I'm the second owner, so it's pretty much an immaculate specimen of this amazing monitor. And then this one, I mean, this is good. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with this setup. Okay, so I'm going to shut this down now, and we're going to take one more look at it just a bit with a different computer powering it. Stay tuned. This is the last thing I wanted to show you here. That's the PowerMac G5 Quad that came, that's settling a little bit, with this beautiful 30-inch Apple Cinema display. Or rather, the display came with the Quad. It was the Quad I really wanted to buy. And there, as the secondary display paired with it, is the 23-inch. I've actually turned the brightness down a bit on the 30-inch. It gets to be almost a little bit too much, but even with that, while that now does match the two displays a good deal better, the 30-inch, to my eyes, just got a little bit more vibrant color than 23-inch, but they're both very good and very useful monitors. So here's our setup, and we could just run this and run this and run this, couldn't we? Well, I want to cover probably the one big downside in this setup, and that's power consumption. 2004, 2005 was a very, very different time. And, you know, with the PowerMac G5 quad going and the 23-inch Apple Cinema display and the 30-inch Apple Cinema display, we could probably power a small third world city pretty well. Okay, I exaggerate, but maybe not. Yeah, it does get expensive to run things like this. So pretty much I leave this set up. I will use it to test certain things because it's handy and it's there. But I don't usually leave it running for long periods of time. I will while I'm using the quad, which I do use. There are things that I can do on the quad better than I can do anything else. But still, it's not something really to run all the time. Now, you might want to stay tuned. I'm not exactly sure when it's going to come up, but I have another video in the pipeline concerning Apple displays that so far in my study to me has been very eye-opening. But we shall leave that for another time. And until that time gets here, be good to other people. They need it. They deserve it. Be good to yourselves. You need it. You deserve it. We will do much, much more good in this world if we are good to ourselves. We can make this world a better place. It is not yet. So please take very, very good and careful care. All right. So I teased the other display offering coming up. We've got a Macintosh coming up very soon. There's a lot of Mac Mini stuff kicking around. And, you know, there may be a few other twists and turns too. Until we can find out what those may take, where those may take us, this has been Broken Electronics.